Welcome, everyone. It's good to be back presenting. There's so much that I can talk about, but I chose a few nuggets that I hope will help you in your day-to-day work. Today, you'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm not commenting on my appearance. A little bit about myself for you to know is that I've been 40 years in the steel industry. 16 of these years were in production. I've actually been working on SDS2 for 30 years, and 24 of those years I've been working here at Design Data. I served on several AIC committees and presented sessions at the NACC. Don't know it all, always eager to learn and share what I do know, as I hold on to my sanity, which can be sketchy like my memory at times. Okay, don't have a lot of time, so let's dig into this. So, what are we going to be covering? We're going to do a refresher on the revision tool and its benefits. Why using the 2D revision chart is an absolute requirement now. Creating a clean seed file, which is very important. We're going to take a surface look at modular properties, the benefits, creation, adding modular properties to seed projects, and if you must, blending legacy and modular properties. I'm going to bring up a couple of issues with the BOM and material properties. We're going to look at the issues with the new 16th edition and 12th edition material files, which will be fixed in 2025. And we're also going to take a look at just one example of why your main material is not getting the shipping mark. And for those that remember the 6.2 seminar, I plugged a little picture there on the right-hand side. Let's move to the model revision tool. Back in version 7.3, whenever that was, I spoke about using model revisions. Now it's 2024 and I still see that several people are not using them. Maybe I can inspire you to consider using this tool due to the requirements to have more data available for tracking. Let's begin by stating that model and drawing revisions are completely different tools. You can use model revisions without using the drawing revisions. In fact, this presentation will only be about model revisions. So what is the benefit of using model revisions? It's a quick, easy way to track and store revision data inside the model. This will permit you to generate lists for the fabricators. You can color code models by revision. You can export data for review for other parties. You can save lists, and it's a great way to validate changes for revisions and dealing with disputes. So, where do you set up this data for the model revisions? There are 3 locations that you can go ahead and add in these revisions. Let's start off with the first one, which is going to be my project settings, modeling, member revisions. Now, please do not mess with that 0 line. Start off by adding in one. I'm going to go and put a change order number 1 for the wonderful reason of because. If I can spell, go ahead and hit OK. Where's the next location? Well, member edit. I'm just going to access it through utilities, but of course you can go ahead and do this through your model as well. And if you go down here to your status, you'll see that you have the no revision change order, the one I just put in, or you can add a new one. Plus you also have the ever important history. Finally, the next location that I'm going to show you is in your import. For your SIS2 or your IFC, that could be an IFC2X3, IFC4, or it could be the ever popular EM11. When you go ahead and you import a model, let's just grab one here that I have already done. You'll see down here in your default member status that again, there's that table that we just saw that was in the member edit screen. Let's go ahead and cancel out of that. Now, let's look at how horribly difficult this is to go ahead and add in a member revision. Let's go and get that depth check turned off. Now, I'm going to select the members I want. Now, I'm just going to make one step before I go here, and I'm going to save this selection. It surprises me how many people are not aware of this save selection tool. So let's go ahead and make that change order number 1. There we go. Let's go ahead and save that. We'll come back to that in a minute. So let's look at how hard this is. You go to Tools, you go up here to your attributes, you go and select which revision you want. You can see right there, I can select which one I want to use. And I just go by area and answer yes to updating it, and I'm done. Now, one of the things that I like to do, and this is what I used to do when I detailed by hand. Yes, I know that was a long time ago. But whenever I had a revision, my first thing, my first priority was to go in there and make a list. And in fact, what's nice about modeling here now is that I can actually come in to my data and I can maybe add in a note, for example, exactly what's going on, like maybe section size change or length. But back to what I was trying to get at here is that first thing I did was I grabbed every member that I thought was going to be modified by this revision. Then I would jot down a little bit about what it was, send it off to the fabricator so they could go ahead and tell me, is this going to be a field work? Has this already been taken from stock? That's going to impact the way I handle these revisions from the detailing side. So it's a great form of communication tool. Now we're talking about reports, right? So I can go up here into my reports and I can select, for example, my members and member revision. Let's try that again. Members and member revision. There we go. And I can select the revision I want and I can get a nice list of all of those members that are being modified by that change order. Now, back to that save selection list, I want to kind of show you what you can use that for. Use this all the time. I can go ahead and I can load this list. Let's go grab that change order. Notice how it's selected, and I can go and get that list of members that are being revised with the reason, or at least what it is for the change order. Okay. Now, next, what else can you do? Once that data is in there, let's go and, for example, let's run a status display. I'm going to come up here and let's go and grab magenta, and notice that we're going to be using the line number, not the change order one. Let's go ahead and poke in line number 1. Go ahead and hit OK. And now I can look at that model and see the color-coded members, especially when I have to come back later. I can go ahead and see it because the data is there now inside of that model. Now, some people are aware of this, but remember I talked about having a record of this. I like to have audit trails. So what I can do is I can go into my tools and I can, once I set that status up, I can go and send out a nice little color-coded model as an embedded U3D in my PDF. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that as a default. Let's go send this puppy up to my drive there. Now, I want to bring something up right here. No matter what you have set for your default to read your PDFs, if you answer yes here, okay, it's going to open it up in Adobe. That's something that we're aware of. It'll have to be fixed. So I'm not going to go and open it up here. Instead, I'm just going to find it on my desktop, open this up. There we go. And now I have that 3D model, and you can see that I've got that nice little color-coded area that I modified. Now, again, a lot of people aren't aware of this table down, but if I set it here to 3D, I can go in here and type in, let's say I want to look for B50, just to kind of demonstrate that there is, see how it went in there and isolated those. So you can get some data and you can use that using this PDF. Now let's move on to the next step. Let's go one level deeper. I'm going to close this off and I'm going to come back here to my model. You can also send out an IFC file which contains all that data that's embedded. This is awesome. So if I want to send out, like, for example, an EM11, I can go ahead and export this. Let's send this off as an EM11. I'm going to throw in some properties because I like to use those, verify where I'm sending it. Go ahead and hit OK. And as you saw earlier, it was already up there. And so now I can open this IFC in any IFC reader. So for example, I can come in here, look at this IFC reader, and then I can use the tools that exist inside of that IFC reader. So let's go ahead and look for Rev to be able to go and isolate, color code, create reports depending on what the capacity is of that reader you're using. Okay, Back to that save list. I want to talk about that a little bit more. So I'm going to load a list here. So let's load selection. And if I want to add to selection, there's several ways to do it, but this I always find is the easiest one. I can select an item and simply add that to the selection by going back in, saving, and overwriting. It's really pretty much easy. I can do the same if I want to remove one. I can just simply go ahead while that's lit up, remove it. Very easy, go in there and I can remove it as well. I'm not going to remove that right now. I want to show you something else. Now this is based off of the model, the member number. So for example, let's say this one right here, I've gone in there and I changed this to a different piece, giving it a different piece mark. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to change this to a W16 by 26. And once I go ahead and hit OK, it was a B50. I'm not going to change that. Let's go and load this, and you'll see that the system will go ahead and say, oh, I remember this. Of course, if you delete the member or that gets reused, there's a couple of things to watch out for. But in general, this is a great tool to have. Also, if I'm in my drawings, SDS2, even though it does a pretty good job of flagging things, doesn't always flag things that have changed correctly. So I can also come in here and I can load that list right here. And you can see that it went in and it loaded those members. And I can go ahead and run a detail from there. Or if I select a member, for example, I'm going to go run that list again. And I can use this one here. A lot of people aren't aware that you can detail selected members. So that's a great way to find those things, color code them or isolate them, however you want to do this. And then you can go ahead and just detail those members that are selected. Okay, back to our PowerPoint presentation. Let's move on to our next portion, which is going to be using the 2D revision chart. The detailing world has changed drastically concerning deliverables. It's no longer just sending out a 2D drawing and a KISS file and a DSTV. On top of that now, you have to send out your IFC files for your BIM collaborative projects, maybe some specialized format like, for example, HEG export for your RoboRail or BendTech for the Dragon. You also have to probably send out some progress reports that they want to know exactly how much detailing is done depending on the fabricator that you're working on. And then on top of that, you have to still handle all the revisions that seem to come in on a daily basis. Well, time to add one more thing for you. The focus of this section is this 2D revision chart. Now, we know that with Strumis, when you're exporting using this BSWX format, that it only uses model data. But there is one thing that it does use from the 2D data, and that is the revision chart level. This revision chart level is what's used to get this _rev tag on your drawings, on your sheets for the export. Now, currently, Strumis only adds this _rev tag on detail sheets, but there is a request to have this also for erection sheets as well as for your gather sheets. Now, when we're working with the Tekla PowerFab export using the PFXS export, too many acronyms, right? You need to actually use the revision chart as well to be able to get this data across into your drawing log. What I mean by the drawing log, let me just give you an example. There's a drawing log example. You can see the revision A and all your data here. And what happens is when you have that in the revision chart, when you send out your next drawing for B, it's going to increment it up. And it's going to maintain those two drawings. Anyways, we'll come back to that and we'll take a look at that later. So what am I talking about revision chart? Well, right here. There's a lot of clients that still just have a table there and they actually put text in. Well, if you just add text here, this is not going to be actually added. This data is not going to be added to this drawing. To be able to have this data added to this drawing, you have to actually use up here this revision chart, as you can see right here. And this will actually embed this data, in this case, the revision level and the date, into that file format that we need when we're exporting for Strumis and for Tekla PowerFab. So let me go ahead and get out of this sheet because I don't want to lock this up, because if this sheet's open when I do my next step, it'll go ahead and skip. File and use, it just skips it, right? So how do I handle 200 drawings that I have to send out for submittal? I don't want to go to each sheet and go ahead and open it up to go ahead and export it. Well, that is done using the tool here in your utility functions. If we go down here to change options and we scroll down here, you'll see this increment sheet revisions. Now you got to be very careful with this, because when you select these items, it's going to ask you, well, okay, what revision do you want? Well, as we know, sheets can have different revision levels. One might be at A, one might have already been issued for fabrication if we're dealing with a revision. So you're going to have to be careful, because there is no undo for this, at least not at the moment. So if you mess up on 200 sheets, you're manually going back through and fixing up 200 revision charts. Now, there is ways like using Stream Deck that you can go ahead and create these macros, but I'm going to be talking with out of the box from SDS2. So I want to point out a nice little report. It's an old report that's been around for a long time, kind of like me. If you go into System, you come down to Status Report by Sheet. You'll see right here that we have revision level. I can go ahead and hit OK. I can grab the sheets that I want to send out. Good thing I closed it. And it'll tell me, now it gives you the detail on the sheet as well, but it'll tell me the status. And this is another point. We want the sheet status, this revision level for the sheet. Don't really care about the detail. But as you can see right here, I've got my sheet revisions, so I know what I'm doing, so I don't end up with something that looks like this, right? So you can see right here, I incremented up that sheet level to 0, and guess what happened? Because I used the manual operation here. So this is just some of the things that I want to point out before you actually go ahead and run this increment sheet revision. And I'm going to go ahead to that. Let's go get there again. Of course, where is it? Right there, increment sheet revision. And I want to send out these sheets right here. I'm going to go and hit OK. Now, what happens here is the system, it'll go in and you can either go up numerically, which means that if it's at 0, it'll go to 1, but it doesn't switch from A to 1. Or 0. You got to be careful with this. Alphabetically is obviously alphabetically, or manually is going in here and just manually typing in what value I want. I'm going to go in here and put in an IFF for issue for fabrication. Let's go ahead and just throw my name in there and go ahead and hit OK. Like a loaded gun, now the system has gone through and it has incremented those up. You can see that it's at 0, gives me this nice little report. When I come back into this detail and open it up, you're going to see now that I am at 0. Let's go look at that drawing data that's embedded. There it is, that 0 information that we want to go ahead and have. Next, I want to go ahead and, by the way, just so you know, if that sheet is set to detail complete, increment will still increment that up. Okay, now let's go ahead and do an export. So I'm going to come into my Tekla PowerFab here. Let's go ahead and do a export, Tekla PowerFab. Now this is kind of getting a little more in depth, but we have this ability with our Tekla PowerFab on export to exclude the member data and bill of material data. So if this is a change where it came back from approval and there's been no changes, I know that doesn't happen often, but there's been no changes, you could send out just the drawing with the status data, and that can be used to update. And that's exactly what I did, is I sent this out that way. And you'll notice that when I exclude that member data, right there, it also excludes that bill of material data, and I can go out and send just my detail, gather sheets and erection sheets with that information. So let's go ahead and take a look at the result of that in my Tekla PowerFab. Yes, I already pre-did the file just to make things a little bit quicker. So we can see right now B1, we're at revision level A. Let's close this off. I'm going to import my file, PFXS, And we're going to look at this one right here, which is just the revised drawings. I'm going to go and import it. Add and replace. Mapping file's already matched what it needed. Now in this case, I've gone in and I've actually brought over some approval data, which I'll just go ahead and put out for approval for all of them. And you can see that it updated these drawings. So when I hit continue, let's overwrite all. And let's go into my project management. Go into my drawing log. And we're going to see right there the B1, notice that it went from revision A to revision 0 for issue for fabrication. And there's that approval status out for approval. That's internally in there. So, in short, you now have to use this revision chart if you want to go ahead and get this data exported for your Strumis and your Tekla PowerFab. Okay, let's move on to our next portion, which is creating a clean seed template project. Okay, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Why move up new projects to 2023 I and above? Well, let's take the excuse off the table about I can't use my classical menu or keyboard shortcuts. That's not true. You can still use those all the way up to version 2025. I can't guarantee 2026 or above that you'll be able to, so now's probably a good time to start getting used to that new Lightning. Okay? More data. The industry wants more data. There's been so many fixes in that XML export, even from 2022 to 2023i. There's been enhancements that have gone in there. And you're going to want to take advantage of it. There's toolbox items that don't run in the older release. So people that want to go ahead and have like that Bentech for their Dragon machine, or they want to have that HEG for their RoboRail, that stuff is actually toolbox items that can only run in these later releases. Plus, there's even updates on those, so you want to make sure that you're keeping current on that. Okay, next thing I want to bring up is that, you know, that Python from 2022 we're in 2.7 and below, and then when we went to 2023 it moved to 3.10. We did that because we had to, for security reasons. We had to go ahead and to meet the current standards, we had to upgrade to the 3.10. Now, I know it's a pain, but eventually you can't stay in 2022 and below forever. You're going to have to move up to your next release. The next thing I want to bring up is that, you know, we've got the 16th edition design method. We've got updated material files that have been added in. There's been fixes that are added in. And you know what? 2023i, 2024, 2025, they're no worse than your older releases. I know the whole thing about the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I've been there. I've done that. Lastly, support will no longer support older releases. So if you call up saying, hey, I'm in 2020, we won't be able to help you. So you're going to want to move up to the 2023i. That's what I usually have as my lowest cutoff. Now, when it comes to convert, finish the projects that you're doing and start a new project in the newer release. Again, I am not a big proponent of converting projects up. I have had to do that sometimes, but honestly, I've never really seen it fix too much. Now, we did have some verifying fix repairs that were done that make it appear that the new release is fixing it, but that doesn't always happen. So again, I usually finish in the project that I'm in and start a brand new project in the new one. But it's your choice. If you want, swim at your own risk. Now, some of the things that don't happen in a convert. So when I convert up, my templates aren't going to be converted from 2.7 to 3.10. Same with the scripts. These are not converted when you bring them up. Some of these project settings, what happens is there's a lot of these variable names. Convert just adds in new variables. It doesn't get rid of some of the old stuff. So you get a lot of this junk that can cause sometimes conflicts or issues. We're going to see this in the presentation. I'm going to bring that up to you too. Plugins are serialized for a specific release, so it's kind of important. And that's why I tell people, don't bring, a lot of people when they create these jobs and they go and package this job using transfer, hit that plugins button. Please don't do that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Material values, for example, Volcraft joist was 3 1/4, and now it's 3 1/2. Just had a client call and say, "Hey, we converted up, but still using 3 1/4." Yeah, because the material file wasn't changed. So again, I just encourage you, stop dragging these projects up and make your life easier. Start from scratch in something new. Nice, clean slate. Okay? Now, concerning seed or template projects. Nobody wants to redo all their sheet outlines, so we'll look at a few different options. Let me first set the scene. I have a project that was created in 2023 and brought up to 2024. Now, in 2023 in the seed project, we're in Python 3.10. Just important to know. So, one of the things I did was I went through and I did my verify and fix to make sure everything was cleaned out. I went into my utility functions and made sure there was no deleted members that I needed to get released or submaterial just in case. I made sure it was clean. Then I brought this project using my copy. I just copied the folder. You could use project transfer. And I brought this up and opened it in my version 2024. Then guess what I did? I ran verify and fix again just to make sure everything was clean. So I want to bring up a couple of things too. This is a legacy property project that was brought up. So when I go into my custom properties and try to activate, you'll notice that it comes up with this message saying that, hey, this is legacy. You can't do this. Now, in older releases in 2022, we didn't get this message, and people would try to activate stuff and they'd think it was activated for modular properties, but it was not. Another tip to know that you're actually looking at something that has legacy properties is when I go into my member properties, you'll see that I have this user namespace, which is populated with all of these scheme entry names, these prompts that you see from the legacy properties. Now, just so you know that everything that was in legacy, so let's say you use collaborative properties, legacy properties when you built this, everything that was in legacy was brought in 2018. We did an exact duplicate of it in modular properties. So if you're using those things out of the box, you're not going to have any difference that you're going to be aware of right off the surface. Now, if you added in your own properties or made modifications and things like that, well, those obviously weren't going to be in there. Okay. Next thing that I like to look at too is in my utility functions. When I come down to my plugins manager, and by the way, if you want to bring over, let's say you build your own modular properties and you want to have that in your seed file, this is where you want to bring this over. And I can see that this is set to flavor. Okay, so that gives me a tip that this was also done in legacy properties. So what happens if I bring a project from 2022 to 2023 when we have that change in Python 2.7 to 3.10? Well, the script that displays those custom properties is a Python script. And guess what? That doesn't get converted. So when you go in and you activate, or you go to not activate, but you go and open up your properties, next thing you know, this unformatted screen comes up. And the reason that happened was because these legacy property script needs to be upgraded to the 3.10. Now let's talk about the way we actually create projects. When you go to create a project, some people will go in there and they will hit that new option, which allows them to go ahead and take that seed project and then copy information over. Some people just take their seed project and create a copy of it, and then they rename it and motor on from there. Now, the one that I really don't like is when they reuse an old product. Hey, we had a fabricator. We worked on him a while ago. Let's just take that job and clean it out, and then we'll go ahead and start a new project. I've always seen issues with that. So I just want to kind of bring up those three methods that I've seen. Now, let's talk about what to do when you're creating a new seed or template project. Three options, again, that I generally see. My point is your best option The best practice is to start everything from scratch. Now, you can copy through utility functions your sheet outlines. Just be aware that you need to go back in and remove the bill of material and add it back in. Remember, I work in support, right? So we hear and see a lot of these different issues. How many times has somebody asked you in support, is this a converted project? Because we know we have seen issues come from that. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Option number one. Well, people bring the project up, they clean it out of all the scripts and everything else. They go and they keep their legacy properties because, hey, I don't have time to fix that right now. They take their chances, they put support on speed dial. Obviously, this is not my preferred method. Next, option number two, the best one, start new from the ground up. And then just copy over those sheet outlines, like I said earlier, into that new seed project. A couple of tips. You can print your project settings and go through them, and I will guarantee that you will find things, I know I did, that I didn't even know were in there or that I forgot about in that setup. That'll actually increase my productivity and make my life easier. Okay. Again, this is the one that I strongly advise people to do, is starting from scratch and simply copy over maybe your symbols and only your sheet outlines. And that's about it. Don't forget about the bill of material that I mentioned. Now, the one that I know that most of you are going to do is you're going to go and take this project out, and you've done a good job cleaning it up when you brought this up to convert it, and then you're going to want to create a new project, but you'll want to keep those project settings. And this is probably, like I said, most of what you will do. So I'll demonstrate this and some of the potential issues that you run into if you're using, for example, material custom properties that go into the bill of material. I am now going to demonstrate this option 3. Remember, option 2, where you create a whole new project setting from scratch, is preferable, but in this case, we are going to go ahead and use those project settings for this new seed template, but we're going to ditch the legacy properties. Project, new, let's go ahead and call this one 2024 seed. And I'm going to select a copy from, which is going to select all this information. And now to ditch those legacy, I simply go and remove the check from here. Oh, before I forget, let me go ahead and select the seed project that I need to be copying this data from. Now, default flavor means that it's going to use modular properties. It actually has been like this since 2020. It goes and uses modular properties. Like I said, they're identical to those collaborative properties that we had. Material file. I'm going to use the USA material file, which is updated with the latest and greatest for the 16th edition AISC data. Do you want to bring up something in 2024? There was a little bit of a problem with the material files in those earlier releases of 2024 that we made out. So what you have to do is you'll have to go, if you use like those earlier releases, you go to your tech support site in the toolbox, and you're going to see this update shape properties, which is going to fix, it was a duplicate issue, fix some of those problems with those earlier AISC 16th edition and CISC edition. Now, I am also going to bring up something else a little bit later, talking about the 16th edition and 12th edition information. Let's go back into our project. Now that this is done, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Let that new project be created. We're in our 2024 seed right now. I'm going to go into my project settings. Of course, you're probably going to want to go into your design, and you're going to want to set that to your latest 16th edition, as you can see right here. Okay. Now, again, remember, I'm in 2024. Just want to make sure that that's clear. A couple of other things that you'll want to do is go into your custom properties, and you're going to want to activate the custom properties that you want to use. So, for example, I'm going to come down here and grab my SDS2 detailer, go ahead and activate. Deactivate, don't use it. Okay, if you're in the middle of a project, don't use it. You can use it at this stage, but not in the middle of a project. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK for that. I want to draw your attention here to my member properties. You'll notice user namespace, there's no plus sign next to it. Now we have that module. There's all those modules that are active that you can go ahead and use. I usually finish off by going in for my seed. A lot of people are not aware that you can come in and set your defaults for your Tekla PowerFab or for your Strumis. You can do that in your seed properties. And you can even add in, as we'll see in a minute, you can add in your own properties concerning your custom properties, member properties, and material properties here as well. Now, when I create my new project from the seed, I want to point out that you are going to go ahead and you're going to copy the job from, and you're going to copy the custom property settings. We're going to come back to this in a little bit and create a new project based off of this seed project. Okay, time to look at modular properties. Why use modular properties? Well, first of all, when we're released to the new Qt code, legacy properties will not be available. So it's a good reason to start getting into them. They're really easy to activate when needed, as we just kind of saw. I can just go ahead and activate which modules I want to use. There's no script to modify when adding in quick user properties. There's no modification from that end. It makes it a lot easier. They're actually a lot easier to create specific company modules. And another thing I'd like to say is that you can use these custom properties. You can do it with legacy too, but easily to add in. Let's say I want a labor code. I can add that in and use that in my PowerFab and Strumis export. And again, toolbox items like HGG will only work with modular properties. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at these properties here. I'm going to go into my 2024 seed. And again, what I've already shown you how you can activate it, but I'm going to add in a property right here. Let's go ahead and call this one whatever. And I can go ahead and add that in and of course use any of these settings. And I'm also going to go and add in a material property. And I'm going to add in one right here and I'm going to call this mat prop. And I'm going to leave this as a string. And I'm going to call this one here MATPROP with a space on it. You can't use spaces when you're actually creating a schema name. And I'm going to add this to my bill of material. There we go. So now I've added in those member properties. You can see those under user namespace. And I added in that material property. You can see that under my user namespace. So what if you made your own modular properties and you want others to be able to use them? How do you accomplish this? Well, the first thing that I'd like to bring up is that when you're dealing with properties, you're not going to want to go ahead when you're creating this project transfer, don't hit this plugins button. I mentioned it before because this grabs all the data that is in the data directory, all those plugins, and it puts it into that job plugins folder. And this is what causes a lot of problems, especially when you're bringing projects up across that Python 2.7 to Python 3.10 barrier. So I just wanted to start that off. The second thing I want to bring up is that when SDS2 runs any type of plugin or anything that's using Python script, what it does is it goes and looks in the jobs plugins folder first. If it doesn't find it, then it goes off and uses the actual data directory plugins folder. So it looks first in the job and then looks in the data directory. This is why it's very important to only have in that job plugin folder those plugins that you want in there. Again, the reason why I said do not hit this plugin switch when you're sending that off. You don't want to dump your whole directory across, right? Okay. So how do I add that in? Well, we've given you a tool which has actually been in there for quite some time called this plugin manager. We looked at it earlier. So I can go in here and I can grab, for example, this module that I created and I can go ahead and bring that across. Very straightforward, very easy. Now that's actually in my seed project. So now let's go into our project settings and I want to actually activate that property. There we go. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Get your nice little warning message, and away you go. Okay, time to create a new project from this seed project. I'm going to go up to and let's go into my new. Let's go and give this a name. Let's just call this my project. I'm going to copy from my seed project. And in this case, I'm going to leave the copy custom property schemas now, like I mentioned earlier. Go ahead and hit OK. Now when I go into my project and I look at these activated custom properties, notice there's my combined modular. It's active. Same with the detailer. That is actually active. When I take a look at my member properties, you can see that I have my user namespace, my combined and my detailer. And you'll see the same that I have my material with the material props that have been added in. I'll finish down here looking at my plugin manager, and look, there it is. There's that modular that I created that I put into that seed project is now also copied into this new project. Okay, let's minimize this. Let's finish off this modular property with a couple of comments. As you saw, when you activate or add modular properties to your seed project, when you create a new project, they're going to be activated. It's going to be added. If you had that in the plugins folder, it's going to be there. So that's nice to have. Toolbox items, I've seen this before. People copy these toolbox items into that job plugin folder. And when you do that, that can cause problems because maybe the client doesn't have a license to use those, or maybe they're outdated because you brought this project and updated it or converted it, I should say. So again, not a great idea, just a suggestion. When you update a modular, let's say like that combined one, I did some modifications in that data directory, make sure you update your seed project with the new one. So just go ahead and bring it over again. It'll overwrite it. And properties are great because they can give you more data. So if you're sending this out as an EM11 or IFC2X3, that property data can come across if you go ahead and send it out. And what happens is that can be used in your BIM collaborative projects like your BIM Plus or your Trimble Connect. You can go ahead and use those. Plus, I also add in extra data into my Tekla PowerFab by using custom properties. Same thing with an example would be labor codes, and same thing, you can do that also with your Strumis. I did mention that I was going to talk about building a modular property for your company. Now, the point is that will take a little while to go through all these steps. So what I did was I created some scripts, which you can contact us at support, and we can go ahead and get you this script. And what it does is it has step-by-step instructions on how to build your modular custom property. And it's really kind of simple in comparison to what it used to be with the old script that we used to have. So you can go ahead and contact us at support and ask for the modular property script, the modular property training script, to go ahead and build your own modular properties that you can use. Next. Well, sometimes we still have to use legacy. Like, for example, now they're working on updating it. I don't know if it's done yet at this time, but MDM module still uses the legacy properties. So I don't really suggest this. It's not preferred to do, but if you have to and you're in a pinch, you can actually go ahead and have both legacy and modular properties used. Now, of course, if you're doing this in a project, I really suggest you back it up. I don't care how you do it. If you use a project transfer, just so you have a copy, just in case something goes haywire and doesn't work out. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to open up my 2023 seed project that we know is legacy. Again, just to confirm, if I go to custom properties and try to activate, it gives me that wonderful little message right there. Next, I'm going to use my Windows Explorer. And what I want to do is go into my program data. And again, this is in release 2024. And I want to go to my flavors. And then I'm going to go to modular. And let's go ahead and set that onto my left side screen. Then I'm going to open up my job. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's come in here and open up a file explorer for that. And then I want to actually find that project that I've created, that 2023 legacy project. Let's go ahead and do this so I have them side by side. And what I want to do is I'm going to take this custom folder, right click, and then do a copy. And then I'm going to paste over here into this folder, replace file and destination. So now what's going to happen is when I go into that project, let's go look at that demo project. Now I can go ahead. Notice before I couldn't open that up. I can go and activate, for example, my HGG, which must use the modular properties. So you see how I'm able to get the best of both worlds there. Again, I'm just kind of telling you here, this is only if you have to go ahead and do this. Let's move on to material property and BOM issues. First, I'm going to go ahead and change to this particular project here. Now let me explain. I created this project without copying, very important, any project settings from any converted project. Let's just start off with that. And we're going to be looking at a couple of issues right here. And I'm going to demonstrate by using a delete to show you what can happen when you have a material or a member property that has this add to BOM checked. Again, this is talking about kind of convert issues here. Now, before we get into this right here, I want to start with going into my project settings. And I would like to go to my sheets and reports, and let's go to our bill of material layout. Okay. We can see here, this is that activated combined modular properties, which by the way, does have an add to BOM on it. And then we have a material property right here, which is the one that I just showed you with the add to BOM. Now you notice everything looks fine here. First off, big problem that I run into when you're exporting to Tekla PowerFab, if you do not have anything in here, and let's say for example at a client who only had values in the header number 1, you will end up getting an error when you're exporting to Tekla PowerFab. So it's very important that you have right here the header line 2 populated with information. Now, let's go and take a look at this material property. And this, again, I'm going to use a delete to demonstrate what happens. Let's say, for example, I have a project that I converted up. I use those project settings. That one, in the case that I ran into, the person had a legacy property that had to add to BOM. And then what they did was they actually created a new project and they moved to modular properties. And that will be the only way I can kind of demonstrate this for you is to go in here. I'm going to set to report plot order 8. You'll notice that my advanced mill is 9. Now when I hit OK, I'm still going to get a message. This is not a new message. This is a simple issue that this right here is too long for the field width. So I'm going to put in SP here. Let's make that cap. SP right here for special properties. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So imagine if it can't find that particular property when you convert it up. So I'm going to demonstrate that by going here into my custom properties. I'm going to go to my material property right here. Again, just as a reminder, this is added to BOM. And then I'm going to simply delete it. So this would be as if that property doesn't exist. That scheme entry name is no longer there. I go ahead and hit OK. So now let's go back into my bill of material layout. So what do you notice right here? In short, this is not updated. So you can see right here I've got 7 and then I go to 9 for the advanced mill. But where's the 8? The 8 is gone because I deleted it. Now, of course, this is really an easy fix. You just have to come up here and go to this advanced mill and set it back to 8, because if you don't, even when you go into the bill of material on your detail, you're going to get errors. So it's very important that you make sure, and this is one of the reasons why I tell people to add bill of materials to their sheet outlines when they convert up to the new seed project. Let's go ahead and hit OK, and that is now taken care of. I can't stress enough how important it is to start off with a nice, clean project settings from scratch in your seed projects. In support, we constantly are running into these issues that come from the fact of a converted up project settings. So again, best practice is what I'm trying to get across, but if you do get some of these things, at least I know how to get you dug out of some of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that seed project that we had, the one that we just created earlier. Let's go into the seed project. Again, just one of the many issues that we have been seeing, but I'm going to go into my bill of material layout. Now remember we had that combined? Well, look at this. You got this duplicate right here. Okay, you can see that I had the combined before, and now I have this material prop duplicated, which of course is going to cause issues when you're doing your export for your Tekla PowerFab. And so let's go ahead. The only way that I have found out to be able to fix this problem is to go in there. Let's just cancel out of this into my custom properties. I have to go up here and I have to deactivate. I know I told you not to do this, but that's when you're in the middle of a project, right? So you got to go in here and deactivate. Actually, that one doesn't have a custom property, so I'm okay. That's added to the BOM. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to that. I'm going to go into my material property right here. I'm going to remove the add to BOM. Okay, that takes care of that. Next, and again, I'll just kind of bring up here to show you that this one here is deactivated so you don't see it anymore. And then the next step that I have to do is I have to close everything down, open it back up again. Now this is a really strange but you must do step, is you have to open up that again, just simply look at it, go ahead and hit OK. Shake your right foot, wiggle your left ear, go back into your custom properties, and then I go ahead, I'll reactivate that one. And I will go into my material property. And now when I go into my sheets and reports, you'll see that I have this combined modular and material property. Now, you'll know that you have had issues with your plot order when you start getting messages like this when you go into your detailing and you go to open up your BOM. So this is just some of those things you have to be careful for. So let's move on. You always must have text in header 2 for your properties if you're exporting to PowerFab. Make sure the property name obviously doesn't exceed the field width. That's nothing new. Watch your bill of material layout when you're starting a project to make sure it is correct when you have properties that add to BOM. And again, I'm going to finish this again with another reminder that really encouraging people to go through and create a new project setting instead of grabbing old project settings and bringing them up. I don't have time to go through all the issues we've been running into, but there are. We're going to move now to take a look at some of these new material file issues that we have been running into. So in 2024, we introduced the AISC 16th and the 12th CISC edition material files. Now, I'd like to remind you, as I mentioned earlier, that if you were to go ahead and have download an early release of 2024, it's important that you go to our Toolbox website and update those material files. And that will fix one of the problems. Now, the other issue that we run into, I'm going to go ahead into this project. I want to bring up that in this particular project, it was created using just the AISC 16th edition material file. Okay, same thing would apply to the 12th edition. So what happens now is that, well, what's one of the things that we do here? You go into Utilities, go into the shape. I'm going to grab that local material file. So a lot of people, for their Tekla PowerFab, to be able to get the anchor bolt, what they will do is they will go into their round bar and they will go ahead and add in, for example, an AB 3/4. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to type in AB 3/4 and 1 inch and 1 1/4 and so forth. Oh, let's just cap that out. AB 3/4. This way, when it comes into Tekla PowerFab, it's going to not have or require the document control to go ahead and say, hey, this has to be mapped to AB. Makes it easier when you're dealing with your anchor rods. So regardless of whether you copy these in or manually add these in, let's take a look at what happens. I'm going to go and open up my project, modeling. Go in here to my 0, and I'm going to turn this to solid. And now here comes the fun part. Now I'm using shortcut keys, which everybody should be using. I'm going to go ahead, select a member, and I'm going to add in a rolled section. Let's go ahead and pick 2 points right here to add in a rolled section. And what do you notice at the top? It doesn't say rolled section, it says round bar. Let's go and take a look. Hey, all I have is this round bar and cruciform. Well, hold on. I should have a list of wide flange, channel, and everything else. What's going on? The reason this is happening is because the first index in that material file is blank, and when you added in a round bar, it automatically populated that. Anyways, you don't need to know what's behind the scenes, but I've been told that in the next release of 2025, and also in 2025i, of course, that this will be fixed. So how do you get around it now if you picked that either AISC 16th edition or you picked that CISC 12th edition when you added in your material file? Well, first of all, like usual, close all this off and let's go back into our shape properties. I'm going to go to my round bar and I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Delete. Yes, I'm really sure. There we go. That's gone. Now, this is kind of weird, but this was one way. I added in a wide flange the first time. I'm like, that didn't fix the issue. So all you need to do is add in a beaded flat, then either add in or copy your round bar. I'm just going to go in here and put AB 3/4. Go ahead and hit OK. And now when I go back into my modeling, and add in my rolled section, you can see now I have rolled section on top, and I have that list of all those sections that I'm supposed to have available. Okay, let's get out of this mess. Okay, let's get out of this and move on to our next topic, main material not getting the shipping mark. I want to bring up that most of the time that I see this where the main material is not inheriting that shipping mark is usually during revisions, especially heavy revisions. Now there may be several issues that cause this, but this is one that I frequently see that is causing that issue. So let's go ahead and take a look at our project. Okay, first of all, I want to bring up in my fabricator piece marking, I have told the system right now that I want to use the member mark for the mark in the member main material in the model. Long-winded way of basically saying that when I look at this, you're going to see that these match. That main material and that member mark are matching. Now, what happens, either intentionally or not, people will place that main material onto a gather sheet. Before I continue, I want to bring up that in this case, I have it unchecked to reuse piece marks, which means that these piece marks are going to be stored when I go into Utilities, Delete, in my Release Submaterial Marks. Now, I don't have anything in there right now, but what's going to happen is that these piece marks, every piece mark is stored when it's used. That way, the system will not reuse them. Okay, let's go take a look at our modeling. So now if I can see over here, I actually have onto a gather sheet. I actually have that part onto a gather sheet. So essentially, we used to do this in the old days to store these pieces so that they wouldn't get reused. In other words, I wouldn't have a piece that is duplicated that's different. You know, a P1 that's a 1/4 by 6 by 6, and then suddenly later in a bigger project, I have the same P1 piece mark, but it's going to be a 1/2 by 6 by 12, right? So we used to throw these onto the gather sheet, which holds that data. And that's exactly what's happening here. I have the C_1 data being held. So I'm going going to go and make a modifications on this right here by, let's just go ahead and simply add in a hole. Right there, go ahead and hit OK, return, yes. And right now we get these messages, the warnings that we tend to ignore that basically says, hey, it's already used by another material, the C_1, which causes the system to come in here. And now you can see that I have a W2 and a C1, okay? So how on earth do you fix this? I'm going to go into my 2D. I simply, in this particular case, I just have to remove that part. Let's go ahead and get out of there, save it. There we go, cancel. Good. And then let's go and open up that modeling again. Go ahead and hit OK. We can see that right there, there's that piece with that hole in it. Just to review, you can see that these are still different. I'm going to now mark this for processing. And let's run this back through our process. I hit F5. Now let's go and take a look at that piece mark. And we can see that now it is matched again because that has been freed up. That C1 is no longer being held. So looking back here, again, because of the gather sheet, a lot of time this happens when it's in revisions. The fix in this particular case is simply remove it from the gather sheet. I have seen verifying fixed go through and sometimes cause this problem. One of the things I like to bring up is that there is a report that can be used for this. And what this report is going to do is, let's go into our generate reports. If I go in here to detailing, you'll see that there's this model BOM difference between, and what it does is it'll give you a report in your entire project to show you if you have a discrepancy between the main material and the shipping mark. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when you're dealing with Strumis, for example, you must have that main material matching that shipping mark, and it can't just be in the bill of material because Strumis doesn't look at the bill of material. And it's also good practice to make cleaner import if you also do that for your Tekla PowerFab. So unfortunately, we ran very long on this, but what I want to bring up is a couple of final words. Refresh on revision tools and benefits. We kind of went through that. We talked about the importance of the revision chart, creating a nice clean seed file. Again, I will stress that it's good to just create a brand new project settings and then simply copy over your sheet outlines and then replace the bill of material. Modular properties, many benefits that come from those, not just using Toolbox, but ease of creation, especially when you need to do a slam dunk of adding in a custom property. We looked at some of those bill of material issues, some of them stemming from converts. New material file issue, which again is to be repaired in the final release of 2025 and the release of 2025i, and main material not getting shipping mark. I'd like to thank you for your time. A couple of upcoming events. Now you can send your questions. You can send them to me, James at support, and you just mention that these ones came from the webinar presentation. Thank you very much.